story begins during the winter of 1864, when Papa was away at war. What a miserable Christmas, we all thought. How happy a Christmas it really was.
Well, at least we have a Christmas tree, Amy, and I think it's beautiful.
Christmas won't be Christmas, Beth, not without presents.
It's dreadful to be poor. I especially feel it because I'm the eldest and can remember when we used to be rich.
We're better off than a lot of people, Meg. Orphans, for instance. We have Father and Marmee and each other.
But we haven't got Father, Beth, and probably won't have him for a long time.
But, Joe, the men in the army are having such a terrible winter. Marmee's right. We have to make sacrifices.
Only I'm tired of making over these same dresses year after year.
Well, I don't think any of you suffer as I do. You don't have to go to school with the impertinent girls who label your father just because he's poor.
Oh, Amy, if you mean libel, then say so. And stop talking about labels as if Papa were a pickle bottle.
Well, you needn't be so satirical about it, Joe. It's proper to use good words and improve one's vocabulary.
Vocabulary? Christopher Columbus!
Joe, don't use slang words.
Oh, I'll never get over my disappointment of not being a boy. Look at me! Dying, simply dying to go fight at Father's side. Here I am sitting and knitting like a poky old woman.
Poor Joe.
Well, there's no use in fretting now. Meanwhile, let's rehearse the play.
Oh, I'm so nervous.
I know you're all going to be wonderful.
I don't want to act anymore after this time. I'm getting a little too old for such things. It does seem rather silly, this play acting.
But Meg, you're the best actress we've got. And there will be an end to everything if you quit acting. Come here, Amy, and let's rehearse the fainting scene, for you're stiff as a poker in that.
Oh, I can't help it. I never saw anyone faint, and I don't choose to make myself all black and blue. I don't care if Hugo does come at me with a pistol.
Do it this way. Clasp your hands like so, and stagger across the room crying frantically, Rodrigo, save me! Save me!
Oh, it's too exciting.
Joe gives a melodramatic scream.
Ah!
Amy follows, but she pokes her hand out stiffly before her and jerks herself as if being pulled by a machine and screams pathetically. Joe gives a despairing groan.
Ugh. It's no use.
Meg laughs outright.
Just do the best you can when the time comes. And if the audience laughs, don't blame me. Come on, Meg. Hither I come from, hither from thy home. Airy sprite, I bid thee come. Bring me here with elven speed, the fragrant philtre which I need.
Hither I come from my airy home, afar to the silver moon. Take the spell and use it well, or its power will vanish soon.
Ha!
Hagar, we are betrayed!
Yes, Hugo, bear the captives to their cells.
And curtain.
Bravo! Brava! I don't see how you can write and act such splendid things, Joe. You're a regular Shakespeare.
Not quite. I don't think a witch's curse, an operatic tragedy, is rather a nice thing. But I'd like to try Macbeth. Is that a dagger I see before me?
It's time for tea.
It's Hannah!
Come on, girls, help me with this tray.
Oh, don't we have coffee anymore, Hannah?
Coffee is scarce and dear, and it seems to me you'd be... Huh.
What is it, Hannah?
Someone's looking in this room.
What?
That Lawrence boy.
Where? Where is he?
Next door in the Lawrence house, where he belongs. Only he does not belong at their parlor window, staring into our parlor window.
But what Lawrence boy?
Oh, Mr. Lawrence, his grandson, of course.
Huh. I didn't know the old fusspot had a grandson.
Well, he just came home. First, he ran away from college.
Oh, that's the bravest thing I've ever heard of.
And when they found him, there he was, wounded in an army hospital. He'd lied about his age and enlisted.
Oh, how perfectly splendid! I should like to do the same.
Joe, what are you doing?
If he can look out of his window at us, I can look out of ours at him.
Josephine March!
He's still there! Yoo-hoo, hello!
You're disgracing us.
Why, that dreadful boy, he's waving at me. And he's still waving at me.
Marmee didn't come home until late that afternoon. She'd been in the village helping poor Mrs. Hummel. As soon as Beth had brought her chair to the fire, they received some news.
News, Meg? What news, dear?
I saw Miss King about the position, Marmee, and she's going to take me $4 a week.
Meg, I'm so proud of you.
Was there any mail in the village today, Marmee? A letter from Father?
You don't think he'd forget to write us at Christmas, do you?
A letter? A letter from Father?
He sent you all a little Christmas message.
Mrs. March?
Yes, Hannah?
Mrs. March is here to see you.
How do you do?
Aunt March! Merry
Christmas.
Yeah, Marmee.
Christmas, Aunt March.
How nice of you to come.
Yes, it was nice of me to come here. A Christmas remembrance for each of you.
Thank you, Aunt March.
Thank you, Aunt March.
When I was a girl, my aunts didn't have to come to me. Hannah, I didn't get you anything because I didn't want to and we're not related.
We plan to visit you tomorrow, Aunt March.
One never knows if there will be a tomorrow. Have you heard from that foolish father of yours, waltzing away to war and leaving others to care for his family?
We're very proud of Father, Aunt March. And nobody's looking out for us.
Joe.
If your father'd listen to me, young ladies, you'd be better off today. I begged him not to invest his money with that swindler. If I told him once, I told him to...
Aunt March, that was years ago and has nothing to do with now.
Besides, it was our money that got lost, not yours.
Don't be impertinent, miss. It's a waste of time to talk. Nobody listens to me anyhow. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Aunt March.
Christmas.
Aunt March, may I have a word with you?
Fine time to ask me.
Aunt March, you still want me to work for you, don't you?
A companion should be compatible, young woman, and you just aren't that.
I will be, I promise. I'm willing to bury the hatchet.
Very well, then. Come over after the holidays, and bring an apron.
All right, Auntie, thank you. Merry Christmas! For all her scolding, Aunt March had given each of us a shiny silver dollar. Supper would have to wait as we dashed off to the village store. And later, after we finished wrapping the presents we were giving to ourselves, Marmee took out the letter that had come from Papa.
And give my girls my love and a kiss. I know they will remember to be loving children to you, my little women.
Mrs. March, ma'am.
Yes, Hannah?
A message from poor Mrs. Hummel, ma'am. She wants to know how soon you can come.
Right away. Amy, get my boots, my wraps, Joe. Good night, my dears.
Good night, Marmee.
Don't wait up for me.
Bye,
I
Marmee.
may be late.
Merry Christmas, Marmee.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. A fine Christmas Eve. Papa far away and Marmee out taking care of sick people.
And our presents, they look so lonesome under the tree.
And there's nothing for Marmee. And she needs a new pair of slippers.
Well, I'm the man of the family while Papa's away, so I'll supply the slippers.
But how, Joe? Our money's all spent.
Well, I bought a book. I'll just take it back.
But I thought of the slippers first, Joe.
So you did, Beth. Well then, I'll buy her army shoes, the very best to be had.
And I'll get her a nice pair of gloves, pink ones.
Oh, a little bottle of cologne for me. Both Marmee and I just love cologne.
Oh, but won't the stores be closed?
Who cares? Come on, me hearties, we'll storm the citadel.
It was long past midnight when Marmee returned. The girls were huddled at the top of the stairs. Marmee stopped by the Christmas tree and found their presents.
But why is she crying? I can hear Marmee and she's crying. Why is she crying, Meg?
As she loves us, little Beth. And love and tears live very close together. Come on now.
The next day,
It's Christmas morning. Christopher Columbus, what a breakfast.
Pastries and coffee. Oh, Hannah.
Merry Christmas, girls.
Kindly pass the pastries, Meg.
Now wait for Marmee, Amy.
Oh, your mom's took breakfast and gone back to the Hummels. She said she'll meet you in church. The baby finally came early this morning. 6 children, half frozen, huddled in one bed, she said. Your mom's took her breakfast to them.
I'm not hungry.
People are starving everywhere, every day, and well, if you're gonna let that worry you, you'll never eat again.
I try not to think about it.
Those people are far away, Meg, and we don't know them. But the Hummels are near, and we do know them.
You're not thinking of giving our breakfast to the Hummels?
Yes, we are. Aren't we, Joe?
A few moments later, as they passed by the Lawrence mansion, loaded with food for the Hummels, there he was, Mr. Lawrence's grandson, and another young man.
That's Mr. Lawrence's grandson, Laurie. Oh, and he's with his friend John Brooke.
What will they think, stopping to stare when we haven't met them properly?
Well, you weren't very friendly. You didn't even say, how do you do?
I don't like the way that Mr. Brooke stared at me.
That was a big morning in their lives, surrendering their breakfast to the Hummel children and meeting young Mr. Lawrence and Mr. Brooke. The next afternoon, Joe was out on the walk shoveling the snow when,
Oh, my dear Meg, you won't believe what just happened.
What is it, Joe? You're flushed and breathless.
While I was out shoveling snow, I met Mr. Lawrence's grandson, Laurie. And not knowing anyone, he asked me to keep him company. And you should see his home. What splendor! And then he asked me about you.
About me? Why?
He was inquiring on behalf of Mr. Brooke, who seems to be quite taken with you. Oh, and then Laurie's grandfather, Mr. Lawrence, arrived. Oh, he's such a nice man.
Nice? His face frightens half of Concord.
Well,
And barks all the time.
he does bark, but not all the time. Oh, I do like him in spite of everything. And guess what? Saturday night, they're having a cotillion of sorts at their house. And we have been invited.
Well, Christopher Columbus!
Saturday night could not arrive quickly enough for the girls.
A party. An invitation to a party at the richest, most elegant home in Concord.
You look just lovely, Meg, dear. Where's Amy?
Oh, she's painting Joe's dress. Joe's done it again, stood too close to the fire. Her best dress, too.
Beth and I patched it up for her, and now Amy's painting the patch to sort of blend it in. Watercolors.
Oh, that's splendid, Amy, splendid. Why, it's right as rain now.
It still shows, Joe. I don't know what to do.
Well, that's perfectly simple. I shall spend the evening sitting in chairs with Beth.
Do I really have to go? Do I, Marmee? There will be all those people.
But it would hurt their feelings if you stayed at home. And besides, little Beth, you need to learn not to be afraid of people.
Well, you at least look most attractive, Beth. But look at me. My shoes are too tight, I have 19 hairpins sticking in my head, and a patch on my back, and I just feel dreadful. Oh, how I hate to be elegant. Well, good night, Marmee.
Good night, my dears.
Come on, my dears. Let's be elegant or die.
And off the girls went to the party. After they arrived,
I'm glad we found the spot, Amy. Nobody can see us.
Can you see Meg?
Oh, yes. She's still dancing with Laurie's friend, Mr. Brooke.
You know, my dear Beth, I do believe our Meg is stricken.
I think so, too. Dancing makes anybody dizzy.
Oh, I don't mean that.
Amy, just look. Just look at that piano over there.
Oh, isn't it perfectly absolute? I spoke with Mr. Lawrence earlier. I told him of your shyness and that you play the piano beautifully. And Mr. Lawrence said you should come over here and play sometime.
I never do that. I don't play for people, just myself.
Oh, he isn't going to listen to you. It's just that the piano is going to ruin for want of use. And if no one cares to play it, never mind, said he.
Someone cares very much. I'll come if no one will hear me and be disturbed.
I'll tell Mr. Lawrence.
Amy, somebody's coming.
Oh, it's that stuck-up Mrs. Gardner.
did you see him, girls? Theodore Lawrence still with an impudent sister of yours. It's very obvious she set her cap for him. Well, what can you expect? One of you has to marry for your money, since you have none of your own. Good night, ladies.
Joe, something awful has happened.
Amy, what is it?
Beth wants to go home. She's had a dreadful shock, and I think I want to go home too.
Where's Meg?
Still with John Brooke, I believe.
We must fetch her and leave. Come, sisters.
And the girls hurried home.
I don't understand, Joe. Coming home from the party so early?
Marmee, you don't have any plans for us, do you?
Plans?
You know, like wanting us to marry rich men or something?
Yes, Joe. I have a great many of plans. I want you all to be beautiful, accomplished, and good. Of course I'd like to see you marry a rich man, if you loved them. But I'd rather see you happy wives of poor men, even respectable old maids, than queens on thrones without self-respect or peace.
I'm never going to marry. Never.
Aren't you, my Joe? Now, go to bed, sweethearts. Go to bed. You must be well rested for your studies.
Oh, I never want to go to school again. Please tell me I don't have to.
What happened, dear?
Meg, you remember when I asked you for money to buy the limes?
Apparently limes are the fashion at school now.
Well, when I went to school, the rumor went around that I had 24 delicious limes, and I was going to treat everyone. Ginny Snow tried to bury the hatchet, but I hadn't forgotten about her cutting remarks about my nose being too flat. Well, I crushed her hopes. And the moment she got the chance, Ginny told Mr. Davis that I had limes in my desk.
He told on you?
He made me hold out my hand and swatted it with his ruler, and I never want to go to school again.
Okay, all right. You can have a vacation from school. I don't approve of corporal punishment, especially for girls.
Well, I'm not sorry you lost them, for you broke the rules and deserve some form of punishment for your disobedience.
Do you mean to say you're glad I was disgraced before the whole school?
I wouldn't have chosen that way of mending a fault, but I'm not sure that it won't do you more good than a milder punishment.
You're getting to be rather conceited, my dear. It's high time you set about correcting it.
One reason why Jo was so sure she'd never marry was because she wanted to be a writer far more than a wife. Jo never stopped writing, and as the days passed, it left her very little spare time, even for Laurie.
Has anyone taken my book?
No.
Amy, you got it.
No, I haven't.
You know something about it. You better tell me at once.
Scold it as much as you like. You'll never see your silly old book again because I burnt it up.
What? My little book I was so fond of and worked over and meant to finish before Father got home? Have you really burned it?
Yes, I did, for being so cross yesterday. And I have, so...
You wicked, wicked girl! I can never write it again! How could you do this to me? Ow, stop pulling my hair!
No!
I will never forgive you as long as I live!
Amy, that book was the pride of Jo's heart. We all loved it. Did you really burn it? How could she ever feel it be made up to her?
Everybody's so hateful. I'll ask Laurie to go skating, for he's always so kind.
Oh, please forgive me, Jo. I really am sorry.
You don't deserve to be forgiven.
My dear, don't let the sun go down upon your anger. Forgive each other and begin again tomorrow.
No, I will never forgive you. I'm gonna go find Laurie.
There, she hasn't forgiven me. And she's gone skating. She promised I could go next time, and this is the last ice we'll have.
Amy, you were very naughty for destroying her precious little book, but I think that she might forgive you if you try her at the right minute. Go after them. Don't say anything until Jo has gotten good-natured with Laurie, and then take a quiet minute and do some kind thing, and I'm sure she'll be friends again with all her heart.
I'll try. Thanks, Meg. Jo!
Amy rushes after Jo. Then later that evening,
I've brought in another blanket.
Thank you, Hannah.
Are you sure she's safe?
Quite safe, dear. She's not hurt and won't even take a cold.
Marmee, if she should die, it would be my fault. I heard her racing after us. I knew she was heading for the thin ice. But I deliberately kept going. Oh, it's my dreadful temper. What will I do?
Watch and pray, dear, and never think it impossible to conquer your fault.
Marmee, help me. Please help me.
I will, my dear Joe. You think your temper is the worst in the world, but mine used to be just like it. I learned to check the hasty words that rise to my lips, and when I feel they mean to break out against my will, I just go away for a minute.
But how did you learn to keep still in the first place?
My good mother used to help me, but I lost her when I was a little older than you. Then your father came, and he helped me learn all the virtues that I would have my little girls possess.
I let the anger get the better of me today. I wouldn't forgive her, and today it might have been too...
The next day, Jo took her story, The Phantom Hand, to the publishers and returned home with exciting news.
Look at this letter, my dears!
Pay to Josephine March the sum of $1 in full payment for her story entitled The Phantom Hand.
$1?
Well, maybe it isn't much, but someday I could make as much as $10.
The Phantom Hand sounds too scary for this old woman. I like something romantic. Oh, I'll get the door.
Just don't understand you, Joe. Keeping yourself up in a garret, missing a lot of fun, and for what? One measly little $1?
It isn't the dollar, Meg. At least that's not all of it. It's just, well, it'll be in print. And I wrote every word, and people will read it. People I've never even seen. And anyway, Lori told me a secret about Meg.
Me?
Meg, do you remember when you lost your glove at the party? Lori told me where it is. In somebody's pocket. John Brooks.
Oh, that's very romantic, isn't it?
No, it's horrid. Of all this sickly, sentimental rubbish. I'm disgusted, and I'm sure Meg is furious.
I don't know, Joe. I believe she's very fond of John.
She is perfectly happy with the way things are. Now Mr. Brooke better stay away from us, or I'll tell him just what I think of him, trying to break up my family.
Just wait till someone falls in love with you, Joe. You'll feel differently then.
Falling in love, that's what you are, Meg. And Amy isn't much better, always primping and showing off. Beth's the only one I can depend on.
Oh, we just had a big surprise. Mr. Lawrence sent you a present, Beth. It took 6 men to carry it over. His piano. Understand, it's a thank you for them slippers you made him.
For me? He gave it to me? Mr. Lawrence?
His note, darling. Read his note.
I can't. Will you read it, Joe?
Miss Elizabeth March, dear madam, I've had many pairs of slippers in my life, but never any that suited me as well as yours. I'd like to pay my debts, so I know you will allow this old gentleman to send you something which once belonged to the little granddaughter he lost. I remain your grateful friend and humble servant, James Lawrence.
So many things happened in those fast, fleeting days. All Meg could think about was John Brooke. And then, like a bolt of lightning, a telegram from the War Department. And upon hearing the news, Aunt March visited.
Well, so your father's in the hospital, eh? Wounded?
Marmie's packing now, Aunt March. And she's asking for your help, $25 for the fare.
I begged your father not to go in the first place, but nobody listens to me. Not until they get into trouble.
Aunt March, the train leaves in 2 hours.
Always interrupting me, and you'll listen this time.
No, I won't. I only asked you here because Marmee said she isn't too proud to beg for father. Well, I am too proud. I'd rather sweep the streets than ask you for anything ever again.
Stubborn, obstinate, rude Josephine, come back here. Come back here.
Jill left in a fury, left Aunt March, and was determined to get the needed money on her own. When she returned home...
So you had another argument with Aunt March? She didn't say anything about it when she was just here.
And March was here?
Why, yes, dear. She brought me the money.
Oh, no.
And where have you been, Joe?
We have been looking all over for you, Joe.
Oh, I lost my temper, and so I decided to get the money on my own. Here, Marmee.
But where did you get it? How?
Well, look.
Oh, Joe, your beautiful hair.
Amy, look! Joe's cut off her hair and sold it.
Well, it doesn't affect the fate of the nation, so don't start wailing.
Christopher Columbus, you look like a porcupine.
Really? Well, I feel deliciously light and cool.
Your hair will grow back, Joe. It'll be just as lovely as ever. But you will never be more beautiful than you are now.
Marmee, your train.
Goodbye, my darlings. God bless, keep us all.
Never was our house as lonely as now. Papa wounded in a hospital, how badly we didn't even know, and now Marmee had left us too. But the worst disaster of all came when Beth returned from taking care of the Hummels baby.
Oh, Beth.
Look at her. Look at her face.
No. Keep away from me. I feel funny.
I'll put her to bed. Joe, run for Dr. Barnes.
Those were the darkest days of their lives, but their prayers were answered and Beth was spared. Marmee was home by now, and the glorious day when their father came back to them too, thin and worn and weak, but home again, and Meg's interest in John Brooke grew.
Well, I guess the March family is all together once again. I call that splendid. I do, really. If only you didn't,
If I didn't what?
Meg, are you expecting that man to call?
Man. Well, if you mean John Brooke, Joe,
Well, I hope you don't think you're in love with him, because I can tell you you're not.
I'm not?
Nope. You see, Meg, I'm a writer, and so I know you have none of the symptoms. Your appetite's fine. You sleep like a log, and you don't mope in corners. Therefore, you're not in love. Therefore, do not go and marry that man.
I don't intend to go and marry any man.
Good. Well, then maybe things will get back to the way they were when Papa was
No.
here.
He's here. Look, the veranda.
Oh, you're in luck. You could tell him off right now. Oh, if only I could see his face when you do.
Poor John. Meg tried to send him away, but she didn't have a chance to. They weren't alone for 5 minutes before Aunt March descended upon them and ordered Meg out into the hall.
What was he doing? Proposing to you, wasn't he? Well, let me tell you, miss, except and not one penny of my money goes to you.
I shall marry whom I please, Aunt March, and I don't care anything about your money.
It is your duty, Miss Independence, to marry a rich man and help your family. You may be perfectly sure that that fortune chaser knows you have a rich aunt, and that's why he wants to marry you.
Oh, John. I didn't know how much I loved him until she said all those dreadful things.
John and Meg were married 3 months later. There was a reception afterwards at the Lawrence home, and Jill stole away from the crowd, and then Laurie going after her. Their families were so sure that their wedding would not be far distant. But no. The months went by, and Laurie and Joe scarcely saw each other. And then, through Aunt March, Joe heard of a position in New York, a good family in need of a governess.
Oh, I've always wanted to go to New York, Marmee. They have the finest libraries and theaters there, and in my spare time I could write.
It might be good for you, Joe.
Oh, it would. And I wouldn't stay forever, a year maybe. And then when I come back, everything will be just the way it used to be.
So Joe left Concord. The family heard from her regularly and always an inquiry about Laurie. And after a while, always a passing mention of a tutor in the household, a foreigner named Professor Bayer. Aunt March and Amy visited.
How's Laurie?
Laurie, well, didn't you see him when he was just here?
Here? In New York? And he didn't come to see me?
Oh, well, tell us, Joe. How's the writing coming along?
Oh, that. Well, I've let someone read it, someone who I trust, a Professor Bayer.
And what did he say?
To be honest, he was a little disappointed. He asked me why I write such artificial characters, but he does think I have talent. He told me not to write a line I haven't felt for myself in my own heart. And he also said when I'm ready for it, he'll make sure his publisher friend reads what I write. And so I'm going home. Back to Concord. It's where I belong.
And what of this Professor Bayer? Will you not see him again?
I doubt it, Aunt March. I doubt it.
Joe was back, and the old house in Concord was briefly lighted again. But there was a great darkness impending.
No, it can't be true.
Oh dear, I'm glad you know it. I've known it for a good while now, and now I'm used to it, so it isn't hard to bear.
Oh, Beth, how could you bear it all alone? But you must get well. You must.
Joe, you mustn't be afraid. I can't express it very well. I guess I shouldn't even try, except to my Joe. But it seems I was never intended to live very long. I never planned what I would do when I grew up like the rest of you did, because I could never bear the thought of leaving home. But I'm not afraid anymore, Joe. I've learned that I won't lose you, that nothing can really part us though it seems to, and that we'll always be a family, even though one of us is gone. But Joe, I think I'll be homesick for you, even in heaven.
In April, Meg's baby was born, and she was named Elizabeth in memory of Beth. After Beth was lost, no one saw very much of Joe. She shut herself up in the garret writing. But then one day, Amy returned from Europe with Aunt March.
Everybody, I'm home!
What is all this ruckus? Oh, my dear Amy!
Oh, Hannah, dear Hannah.
Amy?
Meg, it's really you!
Amy, let me look at you. Oh, you're so beautiful.
Now let me look at you! You're a mother now! I can hardly believe it!
Neither can I.
Oh, Marmee!
Amy, my baby is home.
Look at her, Marmee.
You're all grown up.
I am, Marmee. I really am. I feel older. I'm sophisticated. You can't imagine all the experiences I had. And wherever I was, I'd think, if only Meg were here. If only Joe were here. If only Beth. I was so sorry I wasn't here to say goodbye to her.
Beth understood.
Well, I have so many things to tell you all. How is John? Is he still romantic?
More so.
I knew it. Men are so amazing. I have something to tell you all. I saw Laurie when I was in Italy, and it was the most amazing thing. We talked for hours. I told him I hated goodbyes, and I swear bells began to ring. We found that we were alike in so many ways. It was magical.
So, tell me, who proposed to whom?
Well, there we were in Venice in a gondola, and when he suddenly stood up and shouted, "Will you marry me?" It was so romantic. We'll be married in the spring. And Joe, I never meant for it to happen like this. I always thought of Laurie as yours.
He's never been mine, Amy. He's always been one of us.
Joe, I brought this for you. It's a book of my drawings. I drew all the things you should have seen. All the churches, the mountains, the palaces. I want you to have it.
Amy, I can't.
Yes, you can. We'll be close, Joe. That'll never change.
Never. Amy, thank you. Your drawings are beautiful.
Joe went to the attic, where she had not been for months. After a while, Marmee checked on her.
It's been a while since you've been up here. The room needs airing and a dusting.
I'll get to it.
The attic used to be such a sanctuary for you. Whenever you were sad or disappointed, you'd run up here, bolt the door, and come back hours later so full of life. I haven't seen that Joe in a long time.
I can't write. Can't do anything, really. You're right. In the past, I could always come up with something. I was always so good at that. Beth used to say, Joe can make the clouds disappear. I never should have broken that promise. I never should have gone to New York. If I had stayed, everything would have been different.
Joe, stop it. No one could have done more for Beth than what you did. You could not have changed what happened.
How do you do it? How do you go day in and day out as if nothing has happened?
You think that's how I go on?
You're strong and wise. How can I be more like you? How do I find your strength?
Don't make so much of me, Joe. I never dreamed of this sorrow. I wanted nothing but goodness, but I refused to feel tragic. You have to believe there is reason for hope. You cannot let this defeat you. Why don't you write, Joe? That always used to make you so happy.
I have no heart for it. And if I had, nobody cares for the things I write.
We do. Write something for us, and never mind the rest of the world. Try it, dear. I'm sure it will do you some good, and please us very much.
I don't believe I can.
I believe you can. I'll leave you to it.
Oh, how we dreamed and plotted with abandon in this attic. My sisters and I. They were the fire within me. How can that be lost forever? How when I gave everything with all of my heart?
Then suddenly, Joe got an idea and began writing.
It was several days before Christmas. The girls sat about the parlor and grumbled about their fate. Meg, the oldest and most romantic, said, "It isn't fair that some girls have nice things while we have nothing." "It won't be Christmas without presents," said Amy, with her usual pout. "And we haven't got father to read to us," said Joe. "He yearned to travel and write great books." Only Beth, sitting contented, said, in a tone so sweet, even angels would have listened,
But we've got each other.
"What a miserable Christmas," we all thought. How happy a Christmas it really was.